Yeah, well, you just said the word creative, and I think that that's the thing that motivated me. And so, so I went to school, I got an electrical engineering degree, and I focused on software. Even though it was the mid 80s, I started a software company with a friend, and which was unusual in those days. And we created software applications that were business programs. I won't go into detail, but one of them was a word processor. And but what I realized, and to get back to your question, what I realized is that the thing that motivated me, I almost remember the time sitting in my apartment, I like being creative. That's the thing that is kind of motivating me. And that was 40 years ago, and I've taken that ever since as kind of my North Star, as sort of my compass. Is the thing I like. I think we all do in our own way, whether we're writing books or whatever we do. I think we like to be creative. I think it's almost a human drive. And so I use that as my guide. So at that time, I started to create um, games instead of business applications. And as far as the motivation, what the ideas I got were somewhat simple. So I created some of the very first games for Windows because we're still way back in the very early '90s, and Windows was really mainly in the office. It wasn't in every home yet, and so I created games that I had the idea that business people would actually spend about 10 minutes as a break and play these games. And so what they are is they're classic games from childhood. It's a collection. It's the Symantec game pack. And it is the same Symantec that some people might be familiar with today because they're a very big company. They don't do games anymore. Uh, they probably have even forgotten that they ever did games, but at the time, it was sort of a big hit. Anyway, what the games are is jacks and hangman and pickup sticks, and games like that people are familiar with. Even your grandparents might have been probably more familiar with them, maybe more familiar. And so I took those ideas and translated them into the Windows world. I had a lot of fun doing the graphics of it, which was something new for me. I knew how to program, and that was something I was very good at. But then I got to be even more creative by dreaming up what games to do, and also how to do them graphically, and to draw the things and like that was something that I really enjoyed. And so yeah, I was sort of driven by the creativity to do that, and to come up with those games, and that kind of starts the pathway to where I'm still at today. So I did the Symantec Game Pack. I did some Windows games early on, and then there's this thing called the internet that starts, and more specifically, the World Wide Web, which is what it used to be more known as. The internet as we all know it now, but it was very new. It was the years of dial-in where you with a modem. It was mainly character based. But what I could see after doing the games for Windows, where it was people sitting down, is that it would be a way to make games more social. I mean, how much more fun would it be to play games against other people? And how cool would that be to play against people from all over the country? And so again, I got to kind of marry together my technical abilities with my creative ideas, and that's what I always love. And I realized if I wrote the right software that ran, not to be too technical, but on the server, then people could just log in and play this game. And if other people logged in, they would play against them. And so yeah, so it's sort of like it came from my game experience and wanting to make it multiplayer. And that's what I did. I created the main game that I created. There's a few, but the most popular one was a game called What's in a Name, and that it launched in 1996. And it's a word game that a very simple idea that where you're given a name and then using letters in that name, you create as many words as you can. And if you get the word first, then you get the points and the other person doesn't. So if the name's George Washington, you could come up with the name Wash, or I'm sorry, you could come up with the word wash or all the other ones. And uh, so that became very popular. In fact, in July of 2017, it became extremely popular. There was so this was before Google even existed, and but Yahoo did. And the way Yahoo worked in those days is the internet was so small, the World Wide Web was so small, they could kind of catalog everything, just about, or most everything. And they could also have pick of the weeks. So in July of 2017, they picked Funster as a pick of the week, and then traffic kind of exploded from having maybe a dozen people at the website. I now had like hundreds, and then later that year they selected it as a pick of the year. So that really helped and was quite an honor. Two of them come to mind. One of them was probably 15 years ago. I did a kids puzzle book, and my daughter, who was about three or no, four at the time, was sort of put on as the co-author, which was a lot of fun, and we did signings together. That was a long time ago, a different era, but I've got certainly fond memories of that. Um, the second one is more recently. I've been interested in doing books that where the benefit is the main part of the book, and I think this is kind of a way forward with me. And the one book that I really like, as far as that goes, is my I don't know if I could do that. Yeah, the Healthy Brain book. And so it's some of the same puzzles, and it's a collection of more puzzles, but it's sort of targeted at people who want to have fun. It is Funster, but also want to do something that energizes their brain, that's actually uh, good for them, part of a healthy lifestyle, even. And so I like that idea, and I think moving forward, I want to kind of go and find the best puzzles like that. And this book, as I showed you, does include other types of puzzles besides the three that I keep mentioning: word search, Sudoku, and crosswords. And I'd like to find more puzzles like that. And what are the best puzzles I could do that really exercise our brain and are fun, and that quest is really intriguing me right now and into the future, uh, and is a very creative thing, to get back to that word. Getting back to what you said about all the digital things today, and what are kids going to want and all of that. Well, I will say we're kind of in a golden age of puzzles in my mind, and yeah, we have kind of come back to computers. New York Times kind of leading the way, as they usually do with puzzles, and have a lot of great online puzzles. Now that they bought Wordle and the other collection they have, and they're just one of many substantial publishers that are putting puzzles out, and that's fine. But they're inspiring to me. Some of those ideas. Um, can translate, maybe not directly. I wouldn't just copy them, but you could. But there's ideas there that I think could be kind of borrowed on, and they're inspiring. So as far as how I get the ideas, I think that's one of the ways is to see what's going on in that regard, online, and I'm not too my niche. I think, though I did come from that world, and I guess technically I could create apps and things like that, I kind of think that there's a big market for people that just want paper and pencil for one reason or another. And so I'm trying to come up with as many ideas that translate into that. And I'm trying to be I keep saying this, but I'm trying to be as creative as I can. It's easy to create word search, Sudoku, um, but what else could we do? And that's kind of my new mission, my more than ever my mission. So with a publisher, I'm doing this one uh, this one speed solve series, and it involves again the three puzzles that I keep talking about. We have crossword rush, word search rush, and the new one that's coming out, Sudoku rush. And so those are the same puzzles, obviously, the puzzles that we know and love, um, but maybe borrowing from the online world. These are in some cases simpler puzzles because a lot of online ones you can do it pretty quickly, like in under 5 minutes for sure. And some of these at the easier side are ones you can do very quickly. But the thing, it's a small thing, but I think it's important that we put into these books is the place where you could write in the time that how long it took. Now, you don't have to, but if you're a competitive person, like I think a lot of people are out there, you can write that time in. And then why would you do that? Again, you might do it because you want to compete against yourself and see, can I get better and better as I work through all 100 plus puzzles? Um, and you might find it easy. You might find it interesting to see how much better you might get. The part I like, and this doubles back to an earlier part of my career, is that you can be social with it too. Is that, and I think that's another thing that makes the online puzzles so popular. I mean, like Wordle, all of them, but Wordle had a feature where you can text it out, here's what I got. And there's a clever way you can do that. And that's great. And I do that with my daughter, with other puzzles where we compare times. We took a page literally from that and put it into our book so that you could write down your time. And so small change, but I can imagine you could take the book and put it on your kitchen table. You do the puzzle, you write your time, maybe you put a post-it note so that make sure they see it. And you've kind of put the challenge out there. And then the next person in the household could come in and try to do another puzzle. And you could get a friendly rivalry going. I love that idea. Um, and another way is that, or you could send the same book to a friend or a loved one across the country and have a friendly rivalry that way. I've in fact done that with some of the Funster VIP newsletter readers. We've sort of compared times and for different puzzles, and no one should be surprised, but they usually beat me. So, but it's just a lot of fun. It becomes more of a social thing, and I think that makes the puzzle solving even more fun, as I sort of did way back with Funster originally, a multiplayer game. So yeah, so I love that idea, and you know, I think moving forward, I'd like to find more ways that we can find puzzles that are um, we could find more we could find more puzzles that kind of capitalize on the same thing. I think that there's a lot of puzzle ideas, as I keep saying. I haven't done them yet, but I think as far as what you could look forward to, I want to be more and more creative. It's a difficult thing as a business because it's like people, they come to Amazon, they want word search, Sudoku, or crosswords. Well, here I've got something else. Do you want that? It's a marketing problem. It's a business problem. But I'd like to go down that route and serve people who I think want paper and pencil puzzles instead of more screen time. They don't require batteries, and they can get sandy. They could get a little bit wet, maybe, and they'll be okay. And it's such a familiar thing, even to young people. And the tactile experience of books is different, and I'd say in many ways better. So it's not just a retro thing, which is popular, but it's also just a very practical thing. And so I'm not saying that it'll take over all apps. They'll probably always be bigger, but I think there is certainly a world and a place in the world for paper and pencil puzzles. And I think there's a lot of people that want them. I've seen that. I've always loved the name. I gotta say, because it's a brand, and it's like if puzzles are nothing else, they have to be fun. I can say all these highfalutin things about brain exercise, blah blah blah, but if it's not fun, then you're probably not going to want to do it. And anyway, yeah, this was I registered the domain name as one does when you want one of these things back in '96, and I was yeah, I came up with all sorts of names. Even back then, it wasn't like every name was available. No, no, it was already kind of all the great names were taken, and fun was, as I just said, and and um and yeah, I came up and it was available, and so I grabbed it, and boy, I'm glad I did. It's fit a lot of things I've wanted to do, and it's unique enough to be a good brandable name, and it's really served me well. So yeah, I love the name Funster.